You already think you know what it is. A cone of animal hide, a few wooden poles, a thin curl of smoke drifting into a prairie sky. The Native American Tipi, and for most of your life, someone quietly taught you to see it as something simple, primitive. A crude tent from a people who didn't know any better. That lie might be the single biggest misunderstanding in American history. Because what you're looking at isn't a tent at all. It's a machine. A portable, storm-proof, self-ventilating machine so advanced that engineers today still study how it works. Picture it. Two people raise a full-sized home in under 30 minutes, faster than the tent you'd buy at a store this weekend. Winds come howling across the open plains at 60 miles an hour, strong enough to flip a car. And this structure of poles and hide doesn't budge. And in the heart of a killing winter, with an open fire burning inside, it stays warm through the blizzard. Yet the air inside stays clean, almost smokeless. No electricity, no blueprints, no engineers. Just genius, sharpened over 1,000 years. And now look closer, because here's what almost no one notices. A real teepee isn't a perfect cone. It leans. It tilts to one side, like it's bracing against something you can't see. Most people would call that a mistake. It is not a mistake. It is the hidden key to everything. The one secret that makes all of it possible, and I promise you by the end, you'll never look at it the same way again. This isn't a myth. It's real, documented history. So let's begin where every teepee begins, with its bones. Every teepee begins as a skeleton. The poles were cut from lodgepole pine, tall, straight, and strong, and the builders started not with a circle, but with just 3 or 4 of them, lashed together at the top to form a tripod. That simple frame is the heart of everything, because once those first poles lock together, the rest are laid into the crook one by one, each one bracing the others, until a large lodge might stand on 15, 16, even 18 poles. And the doorway almost always faced east, toward the rising sun. But here's where we return to that lean I told you about. The tilt most people mistake for a flaw. Look at a real teepee from the side, and you'll see it plainly. It is not a perfect balanced cone. It's longer and gentler in the front, and steeper, sharper, almost vertical in the back. And that was no accident at all. The steep back was aimed deliberately into the prevailing west winds, built to break them, to split them apart before they could tear the home down. The gentler front slope did something else entirely. It opened up precious headroom inside, right where the family lived. So that leaning shape you'd call a mistake, it's doing 2 jobs at once. Because a tilted cone doesn't fight the wind. It slices through it. With the poles angled inward and staked in a careful, staggered pattern, a well-pitched teepee could stand against gusts of 60 miles an hour, while rain and snow simply slid straight down the hide and off the ground. These people didn't build a wall to fight the wind. They carved a home into the very shape of it. But wind was only the first enemy. The second one lived inside, the fire itself. Think about what a fire really means inside a sealed shelter. Heat, yes. Life, even. But also smoke. Thick, stinging, lung-poisoning smoke with nowhere to go. For countless peoples across history, that was simply the price of staying warm. A lifetime of watering eyes and blackened lungs, huddled in a haze. The Plains peoples refused to accept that price. Instead, they engineered their way out of it. Look to the very top of the teepee, at the 2 flaps framing the smoke hole. The builders called them the ears. Each ear was controlled by a long pole reaching down the outside of the lodge, and by moving those poles, a person inside could steer the flaps like the vane of a weather vane, turning the opening away from the wind so the smoke drew cleanly up and out through the peak. Set at the right angle against the breeze, those flaps stopped the wind from ever pushing back down into the room. But the real masterstroke hung on the inside. A separate lining, sometimes called the dew cloth, was tied around the interior walls, leaving a narrow gap between it and the outer cover. That gap trapped a pocket of still air, insulation, exactly like the double-paned window in a modern home, keeping the lodge warm in winter, cool in summer, and free of the damp that would otherwise bead on the walls. And that same gap became a chimney, channeling a rising current of air that pulled the smoke up and away. The result almost defies belief. A fire could burn in the center of the room through a raging blizzard, and the air inside stayed clean. In summer, they'd simply lift the bottom edge of the cover and let a cool cross breeze flow through. Climate control with no electricity, no fans, nothing but physics and pure ingenuity. And this entire machine could vanish in under half an hour. And that was the whole point. On the plains, life followed the buffalo, and a home that couldn't move was a home that let you starve. So the teepee was built to travel. But make no mistake, this was no lightweight bundle. The poles alone could weigh around 400 pounds, with the hide cover adding another 100 to 150 on top of that. Yet the design turned even that weight into an advantage. When it came time to move, those same poles were lashed into a travois, a simple sled dragged behind a horse, or in the years before horses, behind a dog. The house and the moving truck were one and the same. And the speed is what stuns people the most. A full 18-foot teepee could be raised by just 2 people in under 30 minutes, lighter and faster than most modern family tents of the same size. An experienced hand could put one up or take it down entirely in less than an hour. But here's the twist that most people never hear. This machine, this feat of aerodynamics, insulation, and engineering was not designed by men. Across nearly every Plains nation, it was the women who made the teepee, who owned it, who raised it. The lodge belonged to her. In fact, the woman's ownership was so complete that a man had to ask his wife's permission before he was even allowed to paint a design on the outside of his own home. Think about that. The first mobile home on this continent was designed, owned, and built by women. But that outer skin, the hide stretched across those poles, it was about to tell a story all its own. That hide stretched across the poles was never a blank canvas. The paintings you see on a teepee were never mere decoration. Each design carried meaning. The record of a family's lineage, the shape of a people's universe, the memory of a great dream or a battle won. Some were spiritual shields meant to protect everyone who slept beneath them. Even the direction of the door was sacred, always opening to the east to greet the first light of the rising sun each and every morning. And to understand just how remarkable all of this was, look across the world. Other peoples built cone-shaped shelters too. The Lavu and the Kota of far northern Scandinavia, the Chum of the Siberian tribes. But those were shorter, wider, and crucially, they had no smoke flaps at all. It's a quiet reminder of just how advanced the teepee's venting system truly was. Which brings us back at last to that lean, the tilt I told you to remember, the one most people would call a flaw. Now you see the truth. That single asymmetrical shape solved all 3 problems at once. It broke the wind, it held the heat, and it packed down to travel. Not a mistake. A masterpiece of doing more with less. So the next time someone calls the teepee primitive, remember what it really was. A design so intelligent that modern engineers still study it today. Because true engineering was never about making things complicated. It was about making the wind, the fire, and the snow work for you. And on the open plains of America, that is exactly what they did.